name's Jennifer Tucker, and my husband Brian and I own Moose Mountain Ranch, where we raise heritage livestock. Primarily we raise hand-spinning wool sheep, but we have a few goats. We have both Boer meat goats as well as some dairy goats.
Our operation, my husband and my operation, is called Annaroon's Sheep Company. We have about 125, 130 breeding ewes, approximately 5 main breeds with just a few periphery breeds that we're using for crossbreeding.
We have a pretty good little program. We compost our manure using water, and we also use mechanics. We have a skid steer that we turn the manure with regularly. We also monitor using a manure probe, a compost probe. And by doing that, we're able to know when it's done. We have a landscape company that comes and trades us out bedding, so fresh, clean bedding, for our old compost, and so it works pretty well for everyone involved. Our manure pile is a constantly moving item on the farm. You can see this pile is middle of the way ready. It's still got some raw material on the outside. We water about once every 2 weeks, and we really saturate our piles. We build them up where they have a top center piece, and we even sometimes just take a hose right to the center, let it run for a couple hours, and then turn the pile to distribute the moisture. I don't think we could do it effectively without a skid steer. I do try to turn manure when wind is not blowing directly into my neighbor's laundry or into their open windows. And you do the best you can. They understand that.
When we remove the manure 2 or 3 times a year, what we do is we use a skid steer or a little small bobcat. And because of the bulk of the animals, there's just too much to do with the pitchfork, even though we do use the pitchforks in the barns and in our Quonset buildings.
Here we are on a domestic well, which allocates us to use the water to feed to water livestock. We've scaled back the size of our lawn and garden so we can accommodate them. Water quality is an ongoing issue. We do have a pond out back. We do not use it for any stock watering, and it's just right now being used in the back, and it's fenced off where the animals don't have access to it. The few times of the year that we actually get a lot of moisture, whether it comes in rain or snow, we do have our pens set on a slight hill, so things do drain away from the animals, and they drain away from water sources. So we're fortunate in that we don't have any contamination issues. We really use our skid steer heavily, both to direct water as well as to keep the manure cleaned out and to keep snow cleaned out. Being on a small acreage, dealing with mortality can be a big problem. So what we have to do is we do call the local renderer, and he comes out and he charges a fee and he disposes of that animal legally for us.
When we lose an animal, what many would call the mortalities of the product, you can't be into animals without losing animals now and then. Though I'm emotionally attached and I know most of the names of my animals, you still lose them. First, you might lose them during lambing. Anything that we know why they died, maybe they were stillborn, maybe something they came with, they were too large to be born or something, we know why they died. And what we actually do is we skin out the pelts. Anything that dies that we don't have a reason, we have a very good vet who comes down so that she can do a necropsy or take cultures. I bring in all animals at night, and again, that keeps them more safe from coyotes. I don't leave them in the pastures at night.
We very much control our pasture. Our animals get to go out to pasture more for mental and physical exercise, not for nutrition. Everything I feed comes from a bag or a bale, and I don't expect that pasture to provide any nutrients to my animals. So when we use that grazing, I'm allowing them to go out, run around, have a good time, and then come in after a short amount of time. I provide all their needs in their pens. And that's because if I were to allow them out all the time, I wouldn't have any grass. I've gone through and I've selected grass species that are actually low palatable. They'll nibble on it and they'll munch on it, but they're not going to eat it down so aggressively that it won't come back. Pasture management is something that should be at the forefront of every landowner's mind, whether you have animals or not. This is a resource that you have, and it's your responsibility to maintain. To me, if I look out at a pasture and I see weeds and bare spots and just death out there, it's to me like looking at an emaciated animal. To me, there's not a whole lot of difference. Neglect is neglect. And so you got to take care of your pasture and nurture it and know, oh, it's awful dry. I probably ought not turn those sheep out or turn those goats out on it because it may not come back. And yeah, hay is expensive. But sometimes you have to balance what it would cost to go and reseed that pasture and how many years of not using it at all would cost you. Not to mention you can get blowing dirt complaints from neighbors, and being a good neighbor is an important aspect when on a small acreage or an urban farm. You have to remember that every county is a little bit different in what they let you do and what they don't let you do. All of those things are easily accessible through your extension office. Your local extension agent can provide you information about how many animal units you can have and learn what the difference between an animal unit is. One cow is different than 5, 8, or 10 sheep. Different counties, they consider one goat an animal unit, and some consider 10 goats an animal unit. You need to find out how your county looks at this. Some small acreages have specific requirements about how many animals you can have total of each species. And then you also please recall that there is a difference between carrying capacity and the amount of animals that you're allowed to have on your place. Just because you can have 10 animals on your place doesn't mean that you've got enough grass to maintain those animals year-round. Flies aren't as severe of a problem with sheep as they are, say, horses and cattle. But because we commingle, I have horses on the other side of the barn, we do have that draw, and I try to keep the fly level down because I, again, try to be a good neighbor. In the summer, we have a fly mist system, so that's generally putting down about every 30 minutes. It gives 45 seconds of fly spray. That adds quite a bit of moisture. We do hose down the barn every day. That helps keep the moisture levels inside the barn elevated. Sheep, goat, alpaca, all the small ruminants have very dry manure. It's pelletized, a lot like a rabbit. And because of that, you don't have the wet, heavy manures, and you have to kind of negate that dryness with a little bit of moisture in the air for your creature comfort as well as for respiratory health of the animals.